start recording. All we've missed is my introduction, and nobody wants to watch that again on repeat, so that's absolutely fine.
Sure.
Let me know when it comes up saying recording, because sometimes there we go, got the alert now.
Yeah, it's up there. And for everybody that's on, just so you're aware, we are recording right now. If you don't want to be recorded, please do just drop off. The recording will be available afterwards. All right.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Scott. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to touch on really quickly is we now have an Ingram microcloud BizApps partner teams community, enabling you to essentially not miss out on any updates, any news, any events that we're doing, any workshops. This area tends to be the first place that we're going to post about all these updates and all this latest news. So just to give you a couple of views of how this looks, we're using it to post things. So you can see here, it's just a Teams channel, but things like conversation guides, pre-sales documentation. We've got a really great file storage area for things like licensing guides, release wave information, information about ISV programs, power apps, app in a day content. All sorts of information can be found within here, as well as really useful websites. So we're really making it as this one-stop shop for all great content. It's not just Ingram content, this is Microsoft content as well. So when we get things sent to us, for example, from Craig or from Karen, who have joined us today, we put that information in here so our partners have easy access to it. And then also any useful links that are out there as well. Things like business applications, consultations, marketing collateral, cloud enablement desk, all these resources that you may or may not know about, you can find them in this Teams community. If you're not a member of that and would like to be, please reach out to me and I can add you into this Teams community. And then if you've got any further questions about it, feel free again to reach out to me. I'm not going to go too much into this, but just to know, obviously this is a BizApps event focused around Dynamics 365. Whether or not, so if you are a Microsoft partner, because I know that we do have a lot of potential Microsoft customers on here as well. If you are a Microsoft partner and can't currently offer Dynamics 365, we do have a program in place to enable you to never turn down an opportunity again. So we have a really great Accelerate program. Again, the services that we offer across this, training, marketing, pre-sale support, demos to your own customers, all sorts of services to help you get up and running with BizApps much quicker. And then we can also support you down the road if you wanted to build your own practice. We have paths there as well, so we can support. Why are we here? I really just wanted to touch on some of the opportunity that's out there when it comes to SMB, when it comes to ERP and CRM. Just acronym straight away. The ERP opportunity, we look at that, the global ERP market is forecasted to grow to around $97 billion by 2024. Pretty similar when you look at CRM, around $80 billion by 2024. And the huge growth opportunity, again, if you are a Microsoft partner, there's a massive opportunity here for you to become a one-stop shop for your customers. We're seeing partners that are adding Dynamics 365 to their offering growing around 30% faster than partners that don't have Dynamics 365 in their offering. And that's not just because of the Dynamics revenue that is, it's driving their Azure growth, it's driving their Microsoft 365 growth, and it's enabling them to add more value to their customers, which is also reducing their churn rates as well. So there is a huge opportunity here to help you grow your practice. So again, if you would like to talk more about the program or the opportunity that's here, again, please feel free to reach out to me. And we're here to learn. So again, this is an interactive workshop. There is a reason why we host this in Teams. We want you to ask questions. We want you to please, use the chat box. If you don't want to talk out in the middle of a session, that's fine. I completely understand, but feel free, ask those questions. We will be having breaks, so we can come to those during the breaks, or someone else in the chat can respond. So please feel free to reach out. So yeah, regardless of how you would categorize yourself, if you have any questions, whether you're a Microsoft customer or a Microsoft partner, if you've got any questions, feel free to contact me anytime. All my contact information is on there now. And as you can see, the real brains behind the operation when it comes to me. But yeah, that's all from me. I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to hand over to Craig so we can get into the good stuff. So Craig, over to you.
Yeah, sounds good. You could hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I am probably gonna, well, why don't I do this? I'll come on video for a little bit, say hi everybody. This is the basement office of the Microsoft location here in Denver, Colorado. I actually live about 5 minutes away from the Microsoft office. Just a quick background. Again, my name is Craig Kreskis. I am a partner technology architect with Microsoft in the United States and on one commercial partner team. I'll spend my time exciting you about the integration between Business Central and sales, but just in terms of my resume, 2 weeks ago, I turned 20 years old at Microsoft, all 20 years in Dynamics. And so I live, breathe, love, and get excited about showing off the story of Dynamics and where we've come to where we're going today. And I think it's extremely exciting, not just for our partners, but for customers as well. And, in terms of partnerships, of the 20 years, I have got invested in some of the indirect providers like Ingram, and these guys are crushing it. Matthew, your team, the muscle that they're putting behind Dynamics has been incredible to provide the support resources, the sales, the technical muscle to support partners as they're building out a practice. Now I'm joined by Karen. Karen, you want to say a quick hello to everybody?
Hi, everybody. I'll turn on my video just quick to say hello. Thanks, Craig. Hi, everybody. I'm a colleague of Craig's. We work together on the same team and work with partners every day on Dynamics 365. So I'm excited to be here. I kind of sit more on the sales side, on the CRM side, versus Craig on the Business Central side. So we make a good team to help everyone understand this. I'm a fairly long term veteran at Microsoft as well, a little over 15 years, and I reside out of Minnesota. So it's great to be here today. Thanks, Craig. Back to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Karen. All right, everybody, I'm going to just spend the time, and if you're like me, you're like, hey, let's kind of see what this is about. And I'm going to share a personal story before I get into the setup configuration, and I'll share the agenda with you. But my career prior to Microsoft, I worked for 5 years in a call center in an aviation organization. It was called Jeppesen Sanderson, and it was a lesson learned as it opens up kind of the conversation today about why do we integrate Dynamics 365? Why do customers look to us and say, hey, you know what, I want my sales applications to talk to my accounting applications, and what does it mean holistically for the entire organization? And I put this graphic together a couple years ago because it just seems to resonate, and that is the heart of every business, right? Is accounting, as Matthew said, ERP, accounting, finance, whatever the customers refer to it as. It's the core, it's the backbone of any business. But then you've got these other applications that all manage other aspects of our business, right? Sales, customer service, warehouse, supply chain management. And for me, in a call center of 35, 40 of us on the floor working with general aviation shops, education, universities, everybody who was buying stuff from us, I would always cringe at that call when I had to make to accounting to say, why was my customer blocked? Why were they on hold? I didn't have any information about them. Or back in the day, I'd have these caller ID at the desk on my phone, and I'd see that Pam would call, and she'd be like, uh-oh, I knew that was never a good sign when she called me. And then Pam would wonder, why are customers not paying? So she'd have to figure out who's the customer service rep on the account. I would always walk over to the customer service side, the other side of the building. And then, accounting also managed the discounts and the procurement and everything about the business to make sure we get the best discounts. And then, of course, at the end of the day, it's 3:00, and Marco, who ran the shop floor, would tell me, Craig, cutoff is 3:00. We're not getting orders out the door. So what would I do, just like all of you would do? You'd put the phone down and you'd walk across the street, you'd go down in the basement, and you'd start picking the orders. And then, of course, you have on the other side, tied to accounting, is the executives, right? The C-level, the boss, the managers. And if things were not right, they'd come back to sales. And I would say, oh, well, there's nothing in inventory. So then the boss would have to come down and physically leave the office, go into the warehouse and look at the bin and determine why, something was missing, and then go to customer service. And again, I think you get the picture. And this spaghetti, as I call it, is very typical in most organizations. We've got all these different applications, some of which don't talk to each other, or at least it's not native to speak to each other. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to solve is making running this business, it's a team sport. And so what we're going to do today in today's conversations around the crux of it will be how do we, okay, Penn, wake up. How do we demo these products? So Karen and I are going to come on and we will play the role of sales and finance and play out and show you what that looks like in a demo. I just want to begin real brief with how you create trial accounts. There's a couple of nuances to make sure that you are successful in setting up your demonstration environments. And then we'll take a break right about here. So if you guys can kind of hang and then come back and we'll get deep into the weeds with the integration and how you would configure that. And we'll end with next steps. So hopefully everybody's on board. Again, be excited about the integration story. I would say for someone who's been in Dynamics for all these years, it hasn't always been the easiest and the strongest story. We always lost opportunities to our competitors like NetSuite, who had a fully integrated sales automation application inside of their finance and accounting. But today, I think what you're going to see here gets you bullish about it as you're building your partner practice. All right, so the first step, I just want to make sure, and again, most of you probably already know how to create a trial account, but I just wanted to reiterate the assets that you have as a partner, but then secondly, the best way to be successful to get this going for yourself. So I'm going to assume everybody knows how to get to cdx.transform.microsoft.com, right? Open up your browser. You'll click on the My Environments where the red arrow is. By default, again, quick tenant and 90 days, again, depending on where you're located. I realize we've got an international audience today. I'm in North America, so by default, these are the tenants I have access to. And what I would recommend is you scroll down the page about midway through, you'll see where customer engagement resides. And again, this is a 90-day tenant that you can get. And then you'll notice here, and you're probably going to say, well, Craig, why can't we do Business Central? I'll come back to that in a moment. What I'd recommend just to have CRM and Business Central or sales and Business Central in the same environment. Start with this customer engagement. And the reason is Business Central does not include this customer engagement. So again, follow the steps on this live event, or if you're watching this recorded, you'll create the tenant. This take a moment or two. Once it's done, you've got your tenant configured. What I always coach partners to do when we're hosting these live workshops is to copy the admin user that we just created and paste it either into Notepad or OneNote, wherever it might be easy for you to access, because you're going to use this a few times just to get the environments configured. Now, there's been some great enhancements in the browser settings where you can add profiles to it, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But again, you'll create that admin user and then copy your password. I also change this password. You can go into admin.microsoft.com, find that admin user, and then change the password so it's something you would easily recognize or remember. Okay, so once we're done with creating that customer engagement trial account, the second step is to create the Business Central account. And as I mentioned, this two-step process is from the CDX environment. You've got that already done. I want you to go into an in-private browser and open up trials.dynamics.com. So again, whether you're using the Edge Chromium or Chrome for an incognito, whatever it is, I need you to separate this browser from the local credentials that you have on your local machine. So that's why we coach you to do this in private browser, and then remember in private, and then type in trials.dynamics.com, and then make sure you select on Business Central. Sometimes when I would do this early on, I would forget to make sure that sales wasn't highlighted, which was the first box, right? So make sure that you select on Business Central, and then just paste in the work email. And then you could put in any phone number. We don't track the phone numbers. I'm not sure why they still require it or ask it, but I just put in a fictitious phone number for now, and then follow the prompts on your screen. So then hit next. You'll sign in, enter in the password. So again, remember that is that's where you'll paste in from your OneNote, your notepad, and then stay signed in. Select next, get started. And again, I'm just breezing through this. There's probably not a lot of education for you, just so much is to just follow the on-screen prompts. And now you have Business Central up and running. Okay, so now we've created two tenants. You've got your customer engagement environment, and now you've got Business Central. So the last step here is just to make sure you have both running. And the way that Karen and I coach partners to navigate, it's the easiest way to find your tenant environment, and that's to go into home.dynamics.com. So you'll see here, remember now I'm still in my in-private or incognito browser, right? And then you go into home.dynamics.com, and then you'll see this in alphabetical order. So Business Central with the B. I'll pin this app. I typically do this for my demo environments so that I don't have to hunt and peck for the apps that I'm going to use. And then over on the right side, just scroll down the page, and then you'll see the Sales Hub. And you could do the same with the ellipsis. We'll pin this app, and now you've got Sales and Business Central both running in the same environments, and I'm logged in as that system administrator in my in-private browser. Again, I just wanted to make sure you got a successful start in getting the trial accounts up and running. So we've got that done. And so next what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to demonstrate the environments after they've already been configured. So we'll come back and show you the integration. But again, as you think about, your story, right? I shared with you my call center with all that spaghetti and sales and accounting and not being able to share information. I'm going to kind of tee it off to Karen. She and I are going to kind of go back and forth. She'll play the role of sales rep. That's her background in working with Dynamics 365 sales. And I'll come back and forth, and we'll show you when I come on, I'm the finance manager. So let's go ahead and kick that off. Karen, you want to maybe unmute your phone and maybe give these folks a little excitement?
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. Craig, should I take over share the screen?
Oh, I'll drive for you for now.
Okay.
It's up to you. If you want to drive,
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay.
So hey, everybody, just before we get into the demo, we just want to do kind of a quick review of the integration and what's called sync rules and some of the demo data to prepare your environments. And there's lots of documentation out there. Hopefully all of you are familiar with docs.microsoft.com, and there's documentation across all of our solutions out there, but in the Dynamics 365 area, there's Business Central and Sales. So if you go out there and you do search for integration between Business Central and Sales, you'll link to a number of different documents. And here's an example of one of those. So great documentation to support what we're going to talk about. So here's just a mapping of the standard Sales and Business Central entities and how they connect together. So obviously, when we're moving data between these two systems, they have their own separate databases. We need to link the data in Business Central to the data in Sales. So this is really a reference table for you to understand some of these connections. So if you look at the sales price and the in Business Central, links to the product price list. In Dynamics 365 sales, the opportunities link to each other, invoices link to each other. So this is really for reference and to understand what those connections are. Then when you set up the configuration, and again, Craig is going to go through this in more detail after we do our demos and take a little break, but there's also synchronization rules, right? There's always rules that apply on how you do the connectivity and how you do the synchronization across these two. And this is a table that just tells you about some of the control that you have around these synchronization rules that you can define and set up in the system. So we just wanted to cover that quick up front so you understand a little bit of what happens in the background. So now, if you've got your Business Central and your Dynamics 365 demo environments, and in both of those environments, they come kind of out of the box. They've got customer data in there. So if you look at Business Central here, you can see there's customer data for Datum, for School of Fine Art, Trade Research, etc. So because we're going to be syncing data across, we only want to use the customer data in one of these systems. And we're going to choose Business Central as kind of our master for our customer information. If we go into sales here and click on accounts, that's where we see kind of some of that sample data that comes, customers or accounts that come in Dynamics 365 sales. So you see some of the same accounts, but again, they're in the two separate databases. So let's turn off, we just want to walk through turning off the demo data on the sales side. So if you go into to click the little wheel up there and go into advanced settings, you'll come to this screen. If you click settings and then you click data management, there's an option here for sample data. So if Craig just click right there, you can just remove the sample data, and just know that by default, the sample data is enabled in the demo tenants that you set up. So if you just set up a production environment, you might not see the sample data in there, but it is for the demo environment. So we turn off the sample data, we come back to accounts, notice all those accounts are removed. We don't have any more account information here. One of the things to note here is if you take a look on the left-hand side is all the navigation when you're in sales, and you've got accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, etc. Under collateral, you're going to notice quotes, orders, and invoices. And again, this is going to be some of the data that we're going to link between the two systems. And because we turned off the sample data, we also disabled the quotes and orders and invoice data that Dynamics 365 Sales has as well. So if Craig clicks here on quotes, we can see there's nothing listed in quotes. So we've kind of confirmed that we've removed all the data from the system. So now let's go ahead and jump into to our demos. So we've got.
And I have a question for you, Karen.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, just a clarification for the audience, and I know you and I have talked about this, but the steps of removing sample data from sales, is that necessary or required or not?
Yeah, it is. If you're going to show the integration and set up the integration between Business Central and Sales, yes, you do want to do that. Remove that sample data. Just it probably wouldn't be a requirement, but we highly recommend that you do it to avoid confusion. So so really, it's not a firm requirement, but highly recommended that you remove that sample data on the Dynamics 365 sales side and know that you're using the account or customer data from Business Central as your master.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah,
I'll let you drive from here. Maybe it's a little bit easier for you if you want.
Yeah.
And
let me just, I'm going to grab the screen share here and make sure I get my right screen. So I think that I've done that. Just want to confirm that you're seeing that. Okay, excellent. So as Craig mentioned, we're going to do two demos. We're going to do kind of a demo around on the sales side and on the finance side, and we'll hop back and forth between the two of us. So let's go ahead and get in and see what this looks like. So here's the 5 different steps we're going to go through in this demo. We're going to show you how to create a sales quote on the sales side. So first 2 steps are all in Dynamics 365 Sales. We're going to win that sales quote and then turn it into a sales order. And then at that point, that's where the integration and connectivity to Business Central is going to come in. We're going to, once we get on the Business Central side, that sales order is going to sync up. Craig will show you how to convert the order that comes into Business Central to a sales invoice, post the invoice, send to sales, and then, you know, collect our payment from the customer. So let's go ahead and jump in to the first part of this. So let's start with the sales quote. So here we are in our Dynamics 365 Sales Hub, and we're going to use our Alpine Ski House account. And this, again, is the master account for this, comes from customers over on the Business Central side. And if you notice right away, we've got this integration set up. Already, I'm seeing Business Central data surfacing right within my account record in sales. I can see the account number, I can see a balance, I can see outstanding orders. So in Craig's scenario, where he would always get a little bit nervous having to call accounting to gather information about his customer, he doesn't have to do that anymore. I can see that right here. And if I scroll down, I see additional information. There's some service information here. I can see if there's overdue amounts, and maybe if what the credit limit for the customer is, and their total sales. So again, I can see all of kind of my critical sales information right here. I don't need to place that call to accounting. So now let's go ahead and create our sales quote. And we could do this very quickly. There's a plus up here at the top of our sales hub. If we click on that, we bring up a menu to create any type of record in Dynamics 365 Sales. And we're going to go ahead and select quote. This brings up our quick create dialog box to create our quote. And you can see the first thing we need to do is enter a name. I'm the owner. I'm logged in as Karen Berg as the demo user. So I'm going to own this quote because I'm in the US. My currency is set to that. And then I can select price list, customer, etc. So notice these, the little red asterisk means these are required fields. So there's, 5 of the 7 fields here are required. So let's go ahead and enter the details. So I enter the name of my quote. For Alpine Ski House, I select a Business Central default price list. So notice this says Business Central. So again, I'm syncing my price list from Business Central and saving that and utilizing that in Dynamics 365 Sales for consistent pricing. And then, of course, my customer's Alpine Ski House. Once I've got mandatory fields entered, I can just hit save and close. And notice it says your changes were saved, and I can go ahead and just click on view record here to come into that new quote that I just created. So here's my February 14th quote. I can see the information I entered in here. I see a quote number. I see the price list. So the next thing I need to do is really add some products to this quote. So I can do that by selecting add product. And I can select the product here from a list of products in my product catalog. And notice I'm actually, this customer is interested in purchasing this Amsterdam lamp. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And one thing to note here is, along with the price lists, I'm using the product catalog information from Business Central. So the integration between Dynamics 365 Sales and Business Central is right here within a price list and the product catalog. And again, this integration is really going to kind of drive consistency with products and pricing so that I don't have to, I have a single source of the truth for all of my prices. So when I'm sending a quote to the customer, I know I've got up-to-date pricing. So let's go ahead and select this lamp. I updated my quantity to 3 here, and that's really the only required fields that I need to fill out to add my product. I click save and close. I come back to my quote and notice here that my product, my lamp was added to the quote. And also notice that my total amount up here and listed right down here. So it calculated the price and quantity and came up with the total for this quote. So while I'm building this quote, it kind of I can edit it and add it and make changes. But once I'm ready, once I have everything added to the quote, I need to activate the quote, and that's going to set the quote into kind of a read-only mode. So I'm satisfied with what I have, so I go ahead and hit activate, and notice it says read-only status on this quote. And the reason I do that is because this is going to be an official quote I send to my customer. I don't want anyone in the system in sales making changes to this quote. I want it to be set. I send it off to the customer, and we can go back and forth on this particular sale. So, and then with the integration, this quote is also going to be synced over to Business Central. So let's go ahead and pass it over to Craig over on the accounting side. Craig, do you want to just kind of show us what this sales quote looks like once it comes over to Business Central? Hey, Craig, you're on mute if you're talking.
Yeah, I know. I came out of the gates running. Yeah, so here, if you're new to Business Central, here's the user interface. Karen's logged in here as the finance manager or the power user, and up at the top, you see we've hard coded in customers, and then before you go to that, you'll see down below the big green tiles, we provide shortcuts to quotes, orders, sales invoices, etc. But Karen, if you click on the customers for just a sec, and here you see similar kind of a paradigm to what Karen showed in sales, right? To be able to surface Business Central information in a kind of a fact box. We do the same here in Business Central. So as accounting has some visibility into opportunities, quotes, and cases, right? We're trying to solve for that spaghetti, if you will, of, hey, I have no idea what our outstanding case that we have in service, or what are some of the quotes that Karen's working on when it comes to Alpine a ski house. So if you click in the link on that, so all those are hyperlinks. And again, after the integration solution is installed, that that fact box, you get a glimpse of the activity that's happening, and then up in the ribbon where Karen's going to highlight Dynamics 365 sales, and a couple of things on this screen before we go back real quick. I just something I'm going to mention to you. Yeah, Karen, on the far right side, and the way I've designed this click-through presentation for you guys to use, and the answer is yes in the chat box. We'll share this with you. You can either set up the coupling manual or have it auto create. Now for me, I want to train Partners U on how this works. And so, Karen's highlighting where it's not coupled. So as she's creating the quote, I can have it such that when she wins the deal, everything flows right through. But again, we have that turned off because I want to show the mechanics of it. Now in the ribbon, you can highlight Dynamics 365. And then this, when Karen clicks on quote, will send her a round trip back to Dynamics 365 sales. So again, as the accountant, finance manager, I can at least in a read-only mode kind of see the activities that are happening so that we can kind of plan for it, right? Again, what's the business case for that? Certainly we can surface the inventory items that Karen, so that Karen knows that there's 3 chairs in inventory, but as the finance manager, I might want to make sure that we've got enough for all the quotes and all the salespeople going forward. So Karen, you look good. The quote's looking good on our side. Terms are okay. So I'll let you kind of see if you can close this deal.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Can you close it?
I think so. I think it's done. I think I've closed it. So customer liked the quote. I didn't have to change it. They're happy with the price. So let's go ahead and get this deal done. So I'm back here in my Dynamics 365 sales, right within my quote. So to create an order for this, all I have to do is click a button here, create order. And what happens is that it'll use this quote to create the order. So it uses the product and the quantity and the amount in the quote to create the order. It closes this quote as a win, right? I'm creating an order, so I'm winning this, got the win date. All I have to do is say, okay, and here I am in my order. And you notice the same information. I created an order ID, my currency, my price list is the same, my products and amount. So it grabbed all that data from the quote, put it into the order. And I still have links over here, right, to the original quote, and also a link to Alpine Ski House. So let me go ahead and link back to the account record and take a look at that. So once in the account record, we see this timeline, and this is a key thing within Dynamics 365 sales. On almost any record that you look at, you're going to see a timeline. And when I'm in the account record, I'm going to see everything that happens as it relates to Alpine Ski House. So here you see that the quote was closed by Karen as a win. So when I created that order, that happened, and that got posted right here. You also see some other activity down here with the quote. So just know that this timeline is a way to, within sales, to see what the activity and the things that are happening. And again, notice I'm seeing my Business Central customer data right over here on the right-hand side, right in the account record. The other thing I think you want to note is this quote number. So take a little mental picture of that. And as Craig moves into the Business Central side and what happens there, that quote number, we're going to see that again. So I think, Craig, that we can, hand it back over to you. I'm all done. The job in sales is done. I'm going to go off and work on closing other deals. So Craig, why don't you take next steps in accounting to make sure we fulfill this order and get it invoiced to the customer?
Yeah, awesome, Karen. Good job. Thanks. And Contoso appreciates your service here, so thanks.
You bet.
So as Karen said, sales is done, and she's off to nurture and close other opportunities. And so logically, right, then becomes the function of the business management application, right? ERP, accounting, finance. And I hope you guys appreciate I'm using these terms interchangeably just as you go through a sales cycle. Those are the terms you may hear if you're new to it. So again, Business Central, as I mentioned to you, I've configured it as manual and not auto create. And so I'm not sure what the technical term is, but there's a bucket, I'll call it a bucket, called sales quotes. And you can see it here. I actually pinned this to my favorites in Business Central. So if you do a search on sales quotes or you do a search on Dynamics 365, you'll see quotes. And again, they're stored here within this area of the application. Now, as the finance, again, you can see my last active row, Alpine, Karen just won it. Again, I don't have this set up to auto create, but I should in a production environment, but it really just depends on the rules of the client. And so me in accounting, I could go ahead and do a filter on all the deals that are won. So I think I saw a quick IM or text message, in terms of approvals on, can we set up approval on value of the document of the quote? Absolutely. I can also set up reminders, and flag this so that whenever Karen wins a deal and we do have it set to manual, right, I can get notified of whenever the status column changes to a 1, and then I can come in and then process this. So again, because I have it set up as manual, I can manually go ahead and process that in Business Central. So then I create the sales quote. So now we've got the naming convention here. It's 1S, with the prefix is S-QUO for quote, sales quote. And, I had Karen kind of highlight to you a couple of things here. So when you look at the forms in Business Central, they're designed in a way to make it as simple as possible. And so as an example, I always see this header information and the lines in a way in which somebody's new to Business Central, they might not be as intimidated to learn a new application. However, there's areas under the show more that are relevant to this particular document, the sales quote. And what I mean when I said I asked Karen to kind of tee that up, we're bringing over from the integration the quote numbering system from Dynamics 365 Sales. And also in the external reference document number, that's the title of the quote. Okay, so we've got the quote now, and notice it is coupled into Business Central. So then we'll just take the quote to cash, right? So I go and quote. The next thing I want to do is take this quote and make this an order. I'm prompted with a confirmation to move this quote into a sales order, entering in 1007. And now it is ready to be posted. Depending on the client's requirements yet again, or their business process, maybe in your demos, you just do a ship first and then you invoice. For me, I often just do the ship and invoice together. It just makes life simple and easy. Your audiences certainly understand that process. And now I've moved from a quote that Karen created to an order to an invoice to now a posted sales invoice, which begins with a PS. And now I've got a posted sales invoice. So this means it's on my ledger in Kronos US, in Business Central, in the company. Now, again, because I want to make sure that Karen is abreast of everything that's happening, we could either do this auto or we could do this manually. Under the posted sales invoice, under the related action bar or the ribbon, you'll see Dynamics 365 sales. And I want to create that invoice so that Karen sees it. So she's keeping informed, because she's not only just selling deals, right? She's managing the relationship for that client. And so I'll go ahead and create that invoice. Nice thing again, because I'm using Dynamics 365, I don't have to log in and log out. Now I come into sales, and remember when Karen started earlier, again, this is more for our Business Central partners, maybe new to sales, but all of the collateral, right? All the documents that we know are considered collateral, those invoices are situated here. And so here you see now that posted sales invoice for Alpine Ski House. And I changed the sort order to go the newest in the top, just so you guys can see that. And remember, that was a posted sales invoice ending in 215. Notice the column is billed, and you've got it billed here at the top as well. This is important because what the billed status means is we've got a receivable, I've got a document on my ledger, we've billed the client, but they haven't paid us yet. And so yet again, this is like another flag, right? I'm letting Karen know, hey, we billed it. You know, she's probably tracking her commissions, but also she's going to keep an eye on that to make sure they help pay as well. And then I'll finish off on the finance side in Business Central. You know, again, we're going to apply that to the customer 20 days later. They're within their 30-day window. They submit payment. So I'll go under cash management, into my journal, into the general journal. I'll type in the posting date, what the document type is here. It's a payment applied to Alpine Ski House. They sent us the $176.23. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that to that order 1007, right, for the $176. I select OK. I post that document. And now that's been posted successfully. Now Karen would be in sales, right? So again, I could switch to Dynamics 365 sales under invoices. Notice that that invoice, the status is called complete. So we change it from billed to complete. Everything I showed you here again could be either set up automatically, or we could do it manual as I've been showing in the demonstration. And so that's kind of how we would demo, back and forth with sales and finance. I want to make sure you guys understand, right? My scenario that I had for 5 years in a call center was very typical, this spaghetti of all the different lines of communication. And what we're trying to solve with the demonstration that Karen and I just presented to you with Dynamics 365. Right, the customers at the end of the day, they're not looking at it in terms of, well, I need a sales app, I need a Business Central app, right? They need applications to solve all their business problems and challenges. or to streamline and digitize the items, the things that they're doing, so that they're not walking down to a warehouse physically to look at the inventory and say, oh, yep, that pallet's empty or that bin is empty. And so really this is kind of the recap of what we were trying to accomplish in this section. So again, Karen and I just kind of walked through the demo of both sales and finance. We can take a break, Matthew, or I'll let you kind of run with it on how you want to manage our audience. We can take a look at the Q&As, and we'll come back and I will run through, how do you configure it? And then I've got a bunch of technical deep slides on the nuances of it in terms of mapping and synchronization, and what do you do if the synchronization fails? So that's what we'll do next.
Yeah, sure. If you want, maybe say, just looking at the time now, say till top of the hour, we can take a break, come back, look at those questions that have been coming in, and then carry on with your session. How's that sound?
Yeah,
perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah, everyone, if you want to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll do some of the Q&A side of things, and then we'll carry on. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it so far. Awesome to see the chat box so busy with questions. So that's always a good sign. So yeah, enjoy your break, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back, everyone. If you're coming back from your break, I will just say before Craig kicks off again for the second half of his session, just a reminder that we are recording this session, just to make sure that you're aware of that. So if anyone has any concerns around the recorded or anything like that, you know, just so you know. But yeah, Craig, over to you. Or actually, we're going to start with the Q&A, weren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. There's a couple of stuff here. It looks like you guys, your team has totally jumped on it, but I guess Sampath, looks like you guys got a story around the integration and what can we do in Business Central and Office 365. I will say, I don't know if this is a well-known capability, but Business Central does have a CRM Lite within the application. And I think a lot of partners kind of skip that part just because I know they're focused on selling Business Central to finance. But if you go into Business Central and you look under the role pages, for example, there's a sales manager role, a sales rep, or if you're just in the business manager role center, you could just type in search and look at opportunities to look at opportunity management. Or like Karen said, go to docs.microsoft.com and you'll see the capabilities in there. So Sympath, listen, not always is the need for another full-blown sales app if you want to run Business Central with a CRM Lite. I mean, it does basic contact management, opportunity management, and campaigns. Once you start doing branching and some complex scenarios and workflows, that's kind of where Dynamics 365 sales comes into play. I see Assis, is that how I pronounce it? If I didn't pronounce it right, I apologize, but you could absolutely build process-based approvals on values of the opportunity of the quotes. Business Central has about 30 or 35 workflows that are embedded. So as fields change, as an example, right, you want a dollar amount, we could easily use the embedded workflows out of Business Central. Or I think Matthew commented, we've got Power Automate to handle anything else outside of that. What else? Sales professional, sales enterprise, it doesn't matter. That license or that SKU doesn't change the functionality of what Karen and I have been doing. Okay. Whoops. What else? Anything else that I've missed, Matt? Are you seeing anything in the queue? I think most of your team has kind of covered it.
Just to cover off that question from Peter, if you will, Craig. Sorry, I was just trying to find the right link there. I know within Business Central, we can have customer-specific price lists, customer discount lists, volume break lists. Does that all carry through to customer engagement on the Sales Pro side?
Say that again, Ed.
So I know within Business Central, we can have customer-specific price lists. So a price for a product for a customer, and then give them a volume break, and we've got date limitations in there as well. So when we are working through that integration and we're quoting out of Sales Pro, for instance, can we carry that pricing structure through to Sales Pro?
Yeah, I mean, you should be able to. I don't see why not. I mean, you're managing the price list from Business Central, and then if it's a specific to that customer, whatever terms and conditions apply, those rules should carry through into the integration.
Cool. I've seen the integration done, Peter. I will try and find you the right link and forward that one to you.
Yeah. And then just to tie off, Jose, we weren't planning on getting deep into commissions and reports. Really, the thrust of today was just showing you how the two topics or the two apps talk to each other. But we can get you some information or videos or demos if you're looking for any kind of specific reporting requirements out of the applications. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. I'll leave you to carry on.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. And again, everybody, you are, I love the dialogue, the engagement. Thanks for keeping us whole, and tells me that you're engaged, and I appreciate that. So the last step in this, and we'll see how it goes in terms of your engagement. It gets deep into the weeds. I kind of have leveraged some of the content that came from our dev team and engineering team for Business Central. But I wanted to basically show you in kind of three areas, an overview, right? Kind of a little bit more expansive on what Karen said. And I'll do a click by click so that once you have your demo environment running, you can play and pause this recording and then get your environment configured correctly. But basically, I'll review that overview. We will run the setup, and then I'll come out on the step 3 and then just show you the key concepts. And those concepts, just kind of to tease you, is there's mapping, there's the coupling, there's a synchronization, and then there's conflict resolution. And so you will need to be familiar with these, whether you're an administrative user, whether you're configuring the integration to Dataverse, or maybe you're way beyond that and you're looking to develop and extend the integration even further. So let's take a look at how these, again, they fit together. So as you would imagine, right, we have 2 services that we're integrating. On one side, we've got Business Central. And on the right side, there's Dataverse, formerly CDS. Both services store data in structured ways and with some security and/or legal context. Now, Business Central will store them in tables within companies. Dataverse stores it in entities that are owned by teams or within users that are within that business unit. Both of the services also allow for extensibility so that you could easily add new fields to existing tables, or if you have custom tables in Business Central, you can add the custom entities or those custom attributes to entities in the Dataverse also. Now, to be able to customize and use the Dataverse entities in Business Central, we need to have a Business Central representation of that Dataverse metadata. And in the Business Central platform, if you will, those tables, we call them AL proxy tables. So if there's anybody on this call who is, a developer, these are similar to the regular AL tables. They just have table type attributes that are set to Dataverse. And then having a static copy of the data structures are not enough. We need to somehow map the fields between the tables in Business Central and the entities in Dataverse. And here's where that integration table and mapping fields or field mappings come in. I'll show that to you when I'm in the product. They drive how the synchronization process will transfer the data between the 2 services. And then, as we all would hate for it to happen, but there certainly is the synchronization fail, right? For some reason, conflicts will occur in a production environment, but that sync process uses the direction that you set in the integration table mappings to determine the direction of transfer between the 2 of data between the 2 services, whether it's one directional or unidirectional or bidirectional. So let's go in and run this setup. And there's 2 setups that I'm going to do. First, you'll see I'm going to run the Dataverse connection. And then second, I'm going to run the Dynamics 365 sales connection. You could skip number 1. Whoops, where's my pen? There we go. If you run the full sync with number 2, but I'm going to just show you again the differences and the similarities here. I'm logged into Business Central, and there's a couple of ways in which you can navigate to it. You could be here in the settings. I choose, just familiar for me, is that there's setup and extensions. And then I chose the assisted setup. And then I use this chevron here to collapse all of the subjects. These are all the wizard-based menus that continue to grow for our partners and our customers to simplify an implementation. And so, when I first started with Business Central, when we first took the world a storm with an application like this, we had maybe 5 wizards. There are significantly more here in the application today. What you're looking for is the subject called Connect with Other Systems. And you'll see here, I haven't completed these, so this is a new environment. And so I'll start with the Dataverse connection. And I should kind of need to recant my comment where I said you can skip one and not the other. That is incorrect. you do need to do Dataverse first. In fact, when you try and do the wizard for Dynamics 365 sales, you'll get about 1 or 2 windows into the wizard, and it'll say you need to get out and do Dataverse. Sorry about that. Click on Dataverse and then just follow the prompts. Now you'll see the integration will automatically recognize the URL of where I have this installed, and then I just need to sign in with my administrative user. Provide in that same credentials you saved to your notepad. Now BC, Business Central, will ask for permission to set up a few settings on behalf of the administrator. So make sure that you accept the consent here in order for you to move forward, and then accept. Now I'm signed in, I'll select on next. This took me just a couple of seconds, maybe 20, 40 seconds. And then I come here to the window where it's the Dataverse connection setup. Now a couple of things here. First, heads up, this should be slid over to the right. When I was going through this on the recording, when I was capturing these slides for training purposes, if you plan, and this is where I got confused earlier and I said you could skip that first step. If you plan to perform a full sync for sales, you want to make sure that you check or slide this to the right to have all of the entities in there. Right now in the current screenshot, what this will do will sync only the 4 base entities that come in from Dataverse. So by sliding this to the right, it skips the synchronization of Dataverse, and then when I go back and I run the synchronization for sales, it will bring more than just those 4 default entities. Okay. The other thing you'll notice, and I don't know how relevant it is, but ownership model determines who works with the data. I leave it for team. I don't know that there's and that's what that'll do is create the business unit, right? BU in Dataverse. So versus I think it's just like one person or owner. So I leave it to team, let it do its magic, and then I'm finished with that. And now if I do a search, remember in the demo I said earlier, you can do a quick search. When I get to search, I select on connect, which sees the Dataverse connection setup. And here you'll see all the areas in which the wizard took care of it for you, right? It put in the environment URL, it enabled that connection, it put in the versions, and then the ownership model is team. Now under the connection tab, right, I'll test my connection. So I made that connection successful. Then under synchronization, and I hit run the full sync. Here are those 4 base entities. Again, because I didn't slide it to the right, I might as well go ahead and provide that training to you. But here's where you've got the contact, currency, customer, and vendor. And then I'll go ahead and run that full sync. Now, for some reason, and I don't know what was happening at the time of my environment, this will take, you could hit refresh on the browser. It takes a couple of moments for the job queue to run. But for some reason, I don't know why, it did impact my presentation, the demos that Karen and I went through. But for some reason, I was getting an error on that table for the currency. On other subsequent environments, I never had any issues, so I wasn't sure what that caused. So hopefully your eyeballs don't just keep staring at the red font on your screen. But again, I didn't have that as an issue, and I talked to engineering about it, and we couldn't troubleshoot what was going on in this environment. Now, after I run that synchronization, if I come into the Sales Hub, remember when Karen earlier on showed you under accounts where they were blank? Now I've got all of the accounts inside of sales, which came from Business Central. Now I'll talk a little about this again in a moment, but again, because you got vendors and customers here, but we have a Datum, Alpine Ski House, First Up Consultants, that School of Fine Art, and again, their contact information and everything flowed through from Business Central into sales. The other thing I wanted to point out, if you have another environment for customer engagement, which you have been using for years, you've got IP in there, you've got vertical data and years of data, and you're probably said to us about an hour ago, Karen and Craig, you're nuts and crazy. Why would I ever delete that sample data? That's fine. The other thing you could do, and this is kind of what I sometimes will use, the filter or the view. I flag the accounts that I follow. So if you come up to the ellipsis here, there's a little star, and have that as a follow, and then I have the accounts as I follow as default. So again, don't have to do the delete of the sample data. It just makes it easier so that's consistent, but there are other ways to work around that. Okay, so I've run the integration for Dataverse. Let's now run that setup for Dynamics 365 Sales. So you can see here, again, I got the check mark that I completed that task, but we haven't run sales yet. So I'll run sales. Again, it recognizes the sales URL. Same thing, I'm gonna log in as my admin user. I need to give consent and then accept. And then I run finish and then I'm done. So again, pretty straightforward. Those of you who are new to Business Central, again, this search is global search for everything in the application. I often also use Alt-Q. I'm a keyboard shortcut person. Anything I could do to reduce clicks in learning an application. So Alt-Q, and then you just type in Dynamics 365. And again, you have these lists where we're storing, again, cases and products. There'll be a flag here on the right side if you wanted to pin that to the home page. Let's open up Dynamics 365 connection setup. And again, if you remembered in our demo, right, I said sales orders and sales quotes they were manually coupled, or we can auto create in Business Central. So here's that setting. So under the Dynamics 365 connection setup, these are collapsible, by the way. So when you click on Business Central, when you click on this, the bold font, this will expand and collapse. I have this open here. You can see where I don't have mine automatically creating quotes and sales orders. So again, just depends on what the requirements are to the client. If they're saying every time our Karen creates sales quotes and orders, we just want to have it kind of flow through into Business Central, that's fine. Under the connection tab, again, I'll test that connection. I'll select OK. And just like I did earlier for Dataverse, for sales, I'll run that synchronization, run that full sync. And now you'll see there are, all right, more of the tables, the entities, the tables in Business Central, and then I'll do a sync all. So instead of just having contact, currency, customer, and vendor, I'll sync all. Here are the other ones: the item, product, opportunity, posted sales, invoice, etc. And I run yes, and then I can hit the back button. And I often show this under the mapping tab. You have that integration table mapping, and this is how the integration table mapping would looks like in Business Central. So for now, we're only interested in the tables between those mappings. And I'll explain the remaining attributes on the right side and the filters, etc. When we talk about the synchronization, because there are other parameters that we use during the sync process. But here again, you could see the table and the integration tables. And then something else that's probably of interest, if you go into the fields, I think this is where most partners tend to gravitate towards. It's probably the most interesting one, and that's here in the field mapping list. You could see on one side, you've got under the Business Central, we've got currency code, address to, city, zip code, etc. And on the other side, the integration field name, right? These are the representation, the attributes from Dataverse that are surfaced through those proxy tables. So in the integration field mapping list, apart from the setting of a direction right? You can see here from, to, and by. You can, set that up depending on what you want as the default or constant values. So I'm going to take a pause and a breath. Should I look at the Q&A windows or should I keep going? Matthew, if you were my sales coach and mentor, what would you say? You want me to keep going? Do we need a pause? Okay, silence is golden. You're on mute. I'm just going to keep going. And then we'll come back. There's enough time to kind of address those Q&As. I could see the Teams icon is lit up in orange and I've got some numbers there. So I want to go back to the key concepts now that you've seen the integration, right? We've seen the mapping and the coupling and the synchronization. I'm going to take you through this, and it can be a little wordy. It doesn't have the same graphical nature of what I've been showing so far. But as I mentioned on the overview slide, remember that big graphic where we were mapping Business Central tables to Dataverse entities. It's important to remember that only the developers can add new integration table records and integration field mappings. However, the users, you're free to configure settings on the integration table and field mappings to fit the business needs, right? So again, you can control who overrides who when it comes to the mapping. The next area is coupling. So you could set up the coupling. Your typical Dataverse database is going to contain data coming from all over. Wouldn't you guys all agree, right? We have Power Apps now that's becoming so proliferation into environments, or you have other Dynamics 365 services or apps that the customers are running. And so the data in there will be entered by different departments, enriched, or it may even be what we call dirty in the world of ERP or implementing ERP. And that's, data that you may not want to have transferred into Business Central, which, as we know, Business Central would be our system of record. So in Business Central, you don't want to have your data. You want to have your data clean and ready for all of your statutory, your regulatory reporting, your invoices, your taxes. So to make sure that you can control, filter, and pick the data that you want synchronized between the services, that's why we use this coupling. And you saw it in the demo, Karen and I were showing with the fact boxes, right? That coupling establishes a relationship between a record. And what I mean by the record, as an example, you've got the customer in Business Central, and that record, or in Dataverse, or as Karen to an account within the customer within CRM. And so you could set up coupling to a new or existing record in Dataverse. And as you noticed, that coupling enables us to quickly open the related records in another service. And I'll just, again, just to remind us, everybody, this is what that typical record or that coupling action looks like in Business Central. So if I open up my customer, and you'll see under the navigate, we have, this is an older screen here. It still has the old common data service, but under the Dataverse, the action group, this is where I would, again, set up that coupling. If, again, I add a new customer and I didn't run through that wizard after the fact. And then on the Dynamics 365 sales, you see in the fact box, we're replicating the data that's being followed through. So just quick, again, a recap on the manual coupling versus the full sync. Before we just get into the synchronization, just a quick discussion on when to use manual coupling versus when you would do the full sync or auto. So when you start those two integrating the two services, you can start with one of the two situations. In one scenario is where you have data in both, right? I've got data in Business Central and in Dataverse, but then I also have those scenarios where data exists only in one, right? So maybe the customer just bought Business Central or they're just getting into Dataverse. In the scenario where you have both already containing data, you might want to handpick or apply some of the logic to pick the records that you would want to synchronize. So an option here is to manually pick the data you want. Or when the data exists only in one service, the full sync is where we recommend. And that's why I had Karen delete the sample data, show you what a clean environment looks like. But the important thing to remember, if you guys are getting into now the implementation of this, is that the full synchronization will always start from Business Central. Okay.
Hey, Craig, before we kind of get in this, there's a question I'll ask just because it relates more kind of to coupling and setting up kind of the mapping to, you know, something other than what comes out of the box or what you can do that you showed. It says, let's see, can you create a new label when you're doing the couplings and the field mappings and tables? Create a new label. I'm not familiar with that term, so I don't know if that's something on the Business Central side.
Cease, what do you mean by a new label? Do you mean changing the word customer, like on the form itself where we say customer?
Yeah, on the form itself, let's say I create a new link. So there are different, I'm thinking of a SQL database here. I create a new link. I want customer link to his phone number, to his email. Let's, for example, and I want to call it, you know, I want to call it ABC. So that label is unique to the way I've built the stored processes behind the scenes.
Yep. So in Business Central, and the way you would do this is you'd first create a sandbox environment, and then there is it's called an in-app designer. So up at the top right, there's a cogwheel, and you could go in there and change everything about the characteristics in terms of descriptions and behaviors of those fields. So for example, when we do this in a Business Central workshop, you can change. So for example, if I'm going after healthcare, you know, we don't call them customers, we call them patients. So you can easily change that label. You would, again, save it, publish it, and then import that in as an application and apply it to your Business Central production environment. But absolutely, you can do that.
Yeah.
And then
Go. Sorry.
That makes it very client specific. That's what I was trying to get across. And I think you can do it anyway, having seen your demo. So I just wanted to ask, but thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, Craig and Assis, you could do that on the Dynamics 365 sales Dataverse side as well, right? You can, instead of it being accounts, you can change it to customers or whatever. So all of those capabilities to do what you can do in the Business Central side, you can do on the other side as well in sales.
That's good, because internationally, you know, vendors is vendors, customers is customers, suppliers, right? Across the world. So
Correct.
sometimes you need to rename it for your Joe Blogs who's working on it. That's where I was coming across. But if I create a specific one of the way my business operates, then I would like it to be, you know, I'll give it a specific label. And you've answered that question anyway, but that's where I was coming from. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's so we've talked about two concepts so far, right? The mapping and coupling, and again, thanks everybody for the engagement and just popping out, look in the chat box. The third is the synchronization, and again, I apologize. This is not my typical MO as far as just text, but at the end of the day, these technical concepts, they just don't always lend themselves to having fun in demos. So anyway, synchronization is. This is the process where you saw where I was transferring the data between the two services, and that's the integration table and the field mappings that define the rules of synchronizing the data. So the synchronization, that could be either unidirectional, right, either to a table, or meaning like to Dataverse, or from, meaning from Dataverse. And it could be bidirectional, where Business Central will synchronize data in both directions. So one of the things you should know that the mapping record contains a template which will be applied after the record is created in that service. Now, one of the other examples, kind of not necessarily out of the box, but do you remember when Karen added a line item? She called it add products. In our Business Central world, we always say line items. But just before she added the Amsterdam lamp, there was a little switch here at the top. And it said, do you want to do write-in products? So Dynamics 365 sales allows for write-in products. Well, this is an example where that bidirectional for Business Central comes into play, because if we allow sales folks to do a write-in product, that then obviously didn't exist in Business Central, and so we need to accommodate for it. And so the integration does do that. Okay. What else? So the table and the integration table filters, they'll define which data to consider for the synchronization. And so you saw all the out-of-the-box filters. They could be used for filtering Business Central data, and the integration table filter for filtering on Dataverse. And then again, I showed this to you in the demo. If we look at that integration table mappings page, just once more, you can see there's two mapping filter fields, the table field, and then the integration table filter. And so you have these templates that you could use, or you could sync only the couple records that are toggled, right? So you can determine which one should be synchronized. The sync doesn't happen all the time, because that would create just a huge load and latency on both Business Central and Dataverse. And really, you don't need it to run all the time or simultaneously. So for example, currency exchange rates or the unit of measures, I don't need to run that all the time because it doesn't change enough for me to impact the presentation or the process of sales and accounting. So the sync on the data between Business Central and Dataverse is scheduled. We use it's called job queues in Business Central, or background jobs. And so the changes that occurred after the last sync are processed within scheduled time intervals. And then you can go in and you could change those times, and then also you could force it. So again, I do this more from a demonstration purposes. I can go into the job queue and run the sync. So if I'm trying to do something live, I can run that automatically. When the sync only couple records is turned on, after 2 cycles without changes, the integration sync job will actually go on hold due to inactivity. So again, it's just more for performance purposes, but you can go back into those, edit the status, and then force it to turn back on. And then the last concept, so I've covered the coupling, the sync, the mapping, and the last is the concept around conflict resolution. So as I mentioned in the overview slide, that conflicts are going to happen during synchronization of the data between Business Central. I find that the engineering team has done a better job of providing language that helps me troubleshoot and understand what the conflict is. But the conflict resolution capability will detect conflicts that arise from changes of records in between the syncs that are scheduled, and then it'll detect the deletion of coupled records in both services. And then users would have to determine, how to resolve those conflicts. So here's, again, you could do a search on it. Here's a screenshot. You can see a couple of the types of conflicts that users can act upon with the error message. You can see in the last row, it shows the conflict that occurred due to the deletion of a record in BC. For the first 2 in the last row, the user can choose from broken coupling groups of actions to either to remove the coupling, to avoid that error in the future, or to restore the records based on data in the other systems. And then on the third row, the user needs to just manually decide which version of the record will quote unquote win. So that's just a recap of the concepts. We had mapping, right, coupling, synchronization, and then the conflict resolution. I just want to kind of point out again, if you go to docs.microsoft.com, everything I have used for the last 5 years, as I've become intimately aware of how Business Central and sales works together, it has changed drastically in an improved way. The fact that it's now integrating with Dataverse, obviously you all know then it opens up and expands us in terms of opportunities of moving data from Business Central, not even just to sales, but think of all the other Dynamics 365 apps. Now, sales obviously has that integration pre-built because you saw that I did that, but now I can build apps using Dataverse connecting from the data that moved in from Business Central or into some other apps that maybe you're looking to integrate for your customers. So a great stopping point, again, if you just type in Dynamics 365 sales here in the search box in the Business Central on the documentation page, you'll get all the integration details around here, everything I showed in terms of the mapping and that diagram. All is available online. We use, again, to point out the CDX, the demos.microsoft.com, as an easy way to build out that demo environment, beat up on it, test it, create a sandbox environments, kind of understand the underpinnings of it maybe before you go into a live environment. And then again, this obviously is content Karen and I have built. We are always happy to share and make your lives easier. And so here are some of the resources in terms of getting started with Dataverse. There's some developer topics and then admin topics around integrating with Dataverse and then upgrading your integration with Dynamics 365 sales. That wraps up my session. I really appreciate the engagement from all of you. Again, our goal, Karen's and our goal, was to help you understand and I think just reduce any kind of fear maybe around, hey, how do these two products, Business Central and sales, work together? But then again, thinking about the business opportunity, because again, you're going to have customers who aren't looking for those silos. I saw Matthew's answer around, we have these applications, a best of breed of people who are running finance and accounting. They don't look at it as a logo or as a separate product like, hey, we need all of these applications working together. And so that was our goal today, was just how do you get Business Central and sales in an environment? How do you demo it? And how do you set it up? With that, Matt, I know you've allotted me 20 extra minutes. I tried to speak slowly, but where do we go from here?
That's fine. I mean, if anyone's got any questions, and firstly, thanks a lot, Craig, as always, brilliant session. But if anyone has got any questions and they want to type those in now, I've posted some of the links like the docs.microsoft.com, the CDX link and stuff like that in the chat as well. But if anyone's got any questions following Craig's session, feel free to write those in the chat box, come off mute and ask those questions. We could spend sort of 10 minutes or so doing a bit of Q&A, then another break, and then we can hand over to Scott and Ed for their session. So has anyone got any questions at this point?
I've always got questions. What are your links to Microsoft Excel? The reason I'm asking that, a lot of the mid-tier kind of packages offer a slice and dice as if you're seeing it real time in Excel. So I just want to understand, is there a dynamic link? And I assume there is. So I want to see myself drill it right down to the nitty-gritty of seeing that. Is that there?
So you were getting cut out. I think, Ed, you were having some headphone issues. Ed, you want to take that or you want me to? You got it?
Yeah, sorry, I was in the best in the best way that working from home arrives now. My neighbour's just arrived, switched the washing machine on, so hence trying to get headphones plugged in at the same
Don't worry
time.
about it. I just had Co-op do a delivery and they got it all wrong. There was so many milk, which I didn't order. But hey, that's nice. Let's not worry
We're
about it.
pretty much guaranteed I'll start speaking. Amazon will arrive at the front door, so I'll use that as an excuse if the questions get a bit too difficult and I need to run away from this one. So to answer your question on integration assays, did I hear right when you said integrated with Opera,
right.
for instance?
Most packages do have in the integration. You probably know this. Excel is loved by the accounts. They love it. If they can slice and dice and have a link to, which I reckon is quite a complex system at the back end. But if I can do that in Excel and I can sell it to a client, that's where I was coming from.
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of options with Dynamics. There always seems to be more than one option when we're working with Dynamics. So the reason I mentioned Excel earlier on, when we're importing data, especially the first time, you'll set Business Central up the way that Craig has just shown us there. We've got loads of configuration rules around, say, number sequences, customers, product SKUs, and price lists, for instance. So the first time that we're doing data import from a legacy system where we're cutting over for a go live, you need to import your open sales orders, your sales quotes, your sales invoices, your open deliveries, for instance. So we can use a config package within Excel, take your legacy data, bring that into Excel, tidy it up and get the columns in the right format, and then we import that into Business Central. The reason I refer to it as a config package is it's got all the rules playing in the background. So it has to adhere to the rules of Business Central as we've set that up. So we can't just import garbage that doesn't exist and then get failure as soon as we try and do any kind of transactions. So that's one of the options. Further integration with Excel, something called Jet Reports has been around with Dynamics for crikey for as long as I've known it. That's going back to sort of 2002-ish. So if we want that access to data from Excel, and you're absolutely right, Assis, accountants love to use the familiar tools that they've got. So we can sit within Excel pointing at data in real time or extracting it and dropping that into Excel. And things like Jet Reports can pre-package with a whole bunch of reports to suit a lot of the different roles within Business Central. Craig, I don't know about your opinion. I kind of look at that now as it's probably less important now with Business Central and with Power BI than it used to be in the world of NAV, sort of 5, 6, 7 years ago, because we've got more flexibility now.
Yeah, the only all great solutions, and the only thing I would add to your story, Ed, is virtually every single page in Business Central has two icons. One is Edit in Excel, and one is View in Excel. So if you were to go open up Business Central and go to, say, customers, or if you were to go to posted sales invoices, there is under the page action group, and then you'll see Edit in Excel. Now the user has to be authenticated in. They aren't going to let someone just put in transactions, but they can then take that list, whatever it is, and then hit submit, and that loads back into Business Central. And so, I mean, Dynamics 365 Sales has always had two-way integration from Excel to update information, and Business Central is no different. I don't know, outside of maybe a few of the admin windows of security, virtually every page in Business Central has the Edit in Excel button.
So the simple way I can set this up is to have within Excel, which I was trying to remember the names. I worked on NAV quite many years ago, but it is Jet, as Edwin has said. It's quite good to know because a lot of customers like to drill down. I would like to send that report to my manager, and I assume I can, with the embedded links. And these are kind of questions that sometimes they will not log into the core system, but it needs to be able to be there. And it's a question that I always get asked as a consultant. So you've answered it.
Yeah, if I were you, in Edwin's point, you've got Jet Reports to help with the financial and the regulatory. You know, we on the Business Central side continue to package up and invest in the integration of Power BI. That also becomes, you know, that conduit for the analysis. And then from there, I could export that data into PowerPoint, or I could export it to PDF, or I could do whatever and slice and dice in Power BI. So that's another thing to consider as you're consulting to your clients.
Yeah, good to know. Thank you. I'll shut up now, by the way. You're all right.
No, it's great to see the
The more
engagement.
questions, the better.
I got paid to the top of the hour. These guys are paying me, so I'm good.
I mean, if there's no more questions, what we'll do now is we'll do another 10-minute break. So we'll go to sort of 5 to the hour, and we'll come back. We've got another session, as I've put in the chat. Ed Smith, who you can see on camera there, and Scott, that you've seen on camera already. They'll introduce themselves when we come back. But we've got another session talking more in detail around the better together story between Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, Power Platform, using Dynamics within Microsoft Teams, all these great things that customers can take advantage of. So yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break now, and then we will welcome you all back. So we'll see you then. And again, thank you so much, Craig. We'll cut your payment off 15 minutes,
Wait, 2-hour minimum. What?
That's all going over to Karen. Sorry.
You round up. Round up.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. As always, brilliant session. So yeah, we'll see you all back in 10 minutes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.